Hi everyone and welcome to this new video. In this video, we're going to learn on how you can insert or add values to your tables. If you're following the entire series of the SQL for beginners, in the beginning, we spent quite a good time when we were learning SQL on how we were writing the queries and fetching the data from the table. In the previous video, we learned on how you can actually create your own database. Those databases can have their own tables and columns. And now in this video, we are going to learn on how you can insert values into those table. And if you're watching this out of nowhere, if you're just watching the first video of this series, no problem at all. It will be very easy for you to follow along. So let us go to our pgadmin. We have been using pgadmin for a while now. So we know that in the previous video, we created a database called YouTube, and this database has three tables, namely account, account job, and job. So let us quickly first open our query tool. So first, let us actually go ahead and have a quick look of our table, that is account. So here we have user ID, username, password, email created on, and last login. One thing what we should do is actually go to our slides and look at the syntax. The syntax is pretty simple. We use the statement insert into followed by the table name, and then inside the parentheses we write the columns we want to update. Then we use the keyword values, and then again inside the parentheses we write the values that we want to insert. Now here we need to remember two things. Number one is that when we are adding values in the primary key, and if the data type of that primary key column is defined as serial, we do not have to give values for that, because when you create a value of the column as serial type, it is auto increment, and at the same time the SQL will assign value on its own. We will see on how we don't have to explicitly tell the SQL that, hey, write the primary key ID as 1, it will do on its own. That is number one thing. The other, if a column does not have not column as mentioned, it means it is not mandatory for us to write the values there. So you can also omit it and not give the values for that column. So let us go to our pgadmin. We now have user ID in the accounts table, and it says PK, which means it's a primary key. And we do remember that the data type of this column is serial, so we don't have to give the values for this column. And at the same time, we also remember when we were creating the database that the last login also is not mandatory because it was not written as not null. Okay, so let us go ahead and insert our first value. We're gonna write insert into table name, then we're gonna open the parentheses and we have to write username, then password, email, and then created on. Then in the next line we are going to write values, and then again in the next line inside the parentheses we are going to write maybe Jose as the username. Remember, the strings will go inside the quotation, whereas the numeric value doesn't have to go inside the quotation, and each value is separated by a comma. Okay, so password will be password. In usual, if you're into the production, definitely this value is going to be a hash value, but here we're just doing for the simplicity. And the email is going to be jose@mail.com, and then eventually the created at. So it's, I think I spelled it wrong, it should be created on. Now, instead of writing a very long string for the date, what we could use is use the inbuilt function from the SQL, that is current time stamp. I think I have covered about this in one of the videos. You can go and check it out. Let's run this query, and it says insert is done, query returned successfully. So we are now going to go and say select star from account, and you can see we now have the values. One thing to note here, that the user ID is 1. We did not assign it, but it was done by the SQL. And also, since we did not provide any value for this last login, the values remain null. Now let us go ahead and look for a new column, a new table, that is the job table. And this job table has two columns. If you look at the bottom right, it has job ID and job name, and since job ID is a primary key and of the type serial, we are going to omit it, and we're just going to use provide the job name. In the new line we're going to say values, and again inside the parentheses I'm going to say maybe developer. Let's run it. So that's a successful run. Let's say select star from job. Let's run it. And we now have two values, one value. Now you see the job ID is 1. Let us actually go ahead and maybe run one more query to add the value. And here we can write as a solutions architect. Let us run it. And from the history, actually, we can pick this one, copy to query editor, run it, and we, all right, so not this one. Never mind. We can select start from job. Okay, you see now we have two jobs, and the job ID for the second job is 2, and it is the job name is solution architect. So you can see it is auto increment. Now finally we are going to look into the last table, that is the account job, and here it will be a little different because we do have the 2 foreign keys that we are using. So we're going to use the keyword insert into, and we are going to write the table name, that is account job, and here we have to mention the column name. It is going to be user ID followed by job ID, and then we are going to write hire date. Then in the next line we're going to use the keyword as values, and then inside the parentheses we're going to give the values. So since user ID is a numeric value, we don't need to write any parentheses. Job ID is also a numeric value, no need of parentheses. Whereas hire date, again, what we can do is we can use current time stamp. Voila, let us run it. Perfect, it is inserted. So we're gonna say select star from account job, run it. You now see we have the 2 values, job ID, user ID, and the hire date, 3 values. Let us do something different. Let us try to add the values that do not exist. Remember, user ID and job ID are the primary keys, right? And they exist in the other table, and we're using them as a foreign key here. Now, one user ID and job ID with 1 value did exist in both the tables, but what if we try to do and maybe add values that do not exist? Okay, so let us run this. So it is going to give you an error that says insert or update on table current job violates the key constraint on account job user ID, and this is the exact error that we want. It means you have done all your job right, your foreign keys and primary keys, they have been defined very well, because you don't want a value to be inserted if it's a foreign key and it does not exist in the parent table. So if you're getting this error, it is absolutely fine, and this is what you should get. And now that we know on how to insert the values in the table, in the next video, we are going to learn on how you can actually update the existing data that is in the table. So I'll see you there.